Imagine a world where the ground is no longer the only domain of life, a world where humans, not bound by gravity, can soar through the sky with effortless grace, wings spanning wide, catching the wind like living sails. The very definition of human existence would shift, no longer tethered to earthbound constraints. Every aspect of life, survival, communication, architecture, and culture would be transformed by the gift of flight. The first thing to understand is that evolving the ability to fly is no small feat. For humans to take to the skies, their skeletal structure would need to lighten, their muscles to strengthen and specialize. Massive pectoral muscles, built not just for strength but for endurance, would ripple beneath the skin, anchoring wings capable of sustaining long periods of flight. Our legs, freed from the sole responsibility of locomotion, might shrink, becoming more agile for landings or gripping cliffs and branches. Our eyes, already attuned to detail, would evolve to track prey or obstacles at high speeds, perceiving depth and distance across vast aerial expanses. In short, humans would become creatures of two worlds, ground and sky, but the skies would dominate. A society of flying humans would be one constantly in motion. Cities, no longer sprawling horizontally, would ascend vertically into the clouds. Skyscrapers would evolve into enormous spires and platforms, each level accessible only by flight, creating towering aerial neighborhoods suspended above the earth. Streets as we know them would disappear. Rivers and roads would remain, but as navigational landmarks for those who prefer lower altitudes. Markets might float on vast airborne platforms, tethered by cables or levitating through the use of counterweights, where humans glide from stall to stall, wings folding neatly behind them. This is a civilization sculpted around the freedom of flight, where the sky is both a playground and a battlefield. Survival itself would take on a dramatically different meaning. Predators would dominate the air as they dominate the land, shaping the way humans evolve and behave. Giant raptors, evolved alongside humans, might hunt from above, their talons ready to snatch the unwary. Humans would need speed, maneuverability, and perhaps even intelligence-driven flight strategies to avoid aerial predators. The very act of hunting and gathering would shift from stealthy footsteps on the forest floor to breathtaking mid-air pursuits, where humans dive and weave with precision, striking with talon-like tools or nets to capture prey. Birds of prey, dragons of imagination, and humans alike would share the skies in a deadly ballet of survival. But humans are not merely survivors, they are innovators. The evolution of flight would accelerate technological and cultural progress in ways unimaginable in a terrestrial-only world. Tools, weapons, and even art would be designed with flight in mind. Gliders and early mechanical wings might supplement natural abilities, extending range and endurance. Cities could harness wind currents for transportation, creating natural highways in the sky. Communication would rely on aerial signals, intricate dances, or even light-reflecting devices visible across vast distances. Poetry and music would become three-dimensional experiences, performed mid-air, with formations of humans tracing patterns against the canvas of the sky. Aerial combat, both with predators and between humans themselves, would become a defining aspect of civilization. Without flight, ground wars dominate human history, but with wings, warfare transforms into an endless three-dimensional chess game. Attack strategies would consider not only speed and maneuverability, but thermals, air pressure, and wind direction. Armor might lighten, trading heavy metal plates for aerodynamic designs that protect without hindering movement. Leaders would no longer sit in palaces. They would command fleets of winged warriors, diving from the clouds to strike at rivals in a breathtaking display of precision and power. Diplomacy, too, would shift skyward, with alliances formed and sealed through grand aerial ceremonies performed miles above the ground. Reproduction and social structures would change as well. Nesting habits, influenced by the need for safe and elevated birthplaces, might resemble those of birds of prey. Communities could form in cliffside caverns, floating platforms, or massive trees with platforms carved high above the earth. Mating dances, already a spectacle in avian species, would become even more elaborate, combining speed, agility, and aerial displays that challenge potential mates to keep pace and demonstrate skill. Societies might prioritize agility and endurance as signs of strength, influencing social hierarchies in ways unfamiliar to ground-bound humans. The environment itself would feel the impact of humanity taking to the skies. Forests, plains, and mountains would be reshaped not just by settlement, but by flight patterns. Migration routes could follow thermals and wind currents, creating seasonal aerial highways spanning continents. Rivers and lakes would still nourish life, but clouds and air currents would dictate the rhythm of human life. The sky would no longer be empty or serene, it would pulse with life, shadowed by wings in motion, alive with constant activity. Weather would become a more immediate concern. High winds, storms, and lightning would no longer just inconvenience travelers, they would dictate migration patterns, seasonal gatherings, and even warfare strategies. Humans might develop instincts to sense approaching storms, or develop physical adaptations to withstand extreme altitudes and pressures. Cultural evolution would thrive in the open air. Legends and myths would develop around flight, heroes who could dive faster than predators, sages who could ride the thermals, or storytellers who travel hundreds of miles mid-air to share tales. Writing and art might shift to three-dimensional canvases, murals visible from above, or sculptures suspended in mid-air. Music could become as much about acoustics and echoes across canyons and cliffs as melody itself. Entire societies might center their identities around sky-dwelling traditions, festivals marked by intricate formations of humans dancing or racing in the clouds. Even diet and nutrition would change. The human body, optimized for flight, would demand high energy intake and specialized sustenance. Fruit-bearing trees might be harvested mid-air. Fish caught from rivers below could be scooped during swift dives. Farming could evolve vertically, with floating gardens or cliffside terraces that are accessed only by winged humans. Domesticated animals would also change. Species adapted to flight might be developed, whether for companionship, hunting, or transport. The concept of farming, herding, and food production would take on a vertical dimension previously unimagined. Human exploration would extend to heights and distances previously inconceivable. Mountains, once obstacles, become accessible playgrounds, observation points, and refuges. Islands, floating icebergs, or remote cliffs could host entire civilizations that rarely touch the ground. Navigation would rely less on maps and more on innate awareness of air currents, weather patterns, and wind behaviors. The sky would be as familiar as streets and neighborhoods once were, a medium for trade, travel, and discovery. Humanity could colonize areas previously unreachable, developing networks of sky-based societies connected through flight. Yet flight carries consequences. The psychological and physical strain of life in constant motion might alter human consciousness. Aerial humans would develop heightened spatial awareness, coordination, and reaction times. Life lived mid-air in constant three-dimensional movement could make grounded experiences feel constraining or even alien. The human relationship with the Earth would shift. Ground-based dangers, predators, floods, or terrain might seem minor compared to the challenges of flight. In essence, humans might begin to identify more with the sky than the land, redefining what it means to be human. Language, too, would evolve. Calls and signals audible across vast distances would develop into complex systems, blending sound and gesture. Written language might be designed to be readable from above or below, optimized for aerial perspectives. Communication could integrate motion, light, or even bioluminescent patterns visible during night flights. The very concept of community would be fluid, dynamic, and bound by air currents as much as social ties. Education and skill development would focus on flight as much as intellect.
Young humans would learn navigation, maneuvering, and aerial awareness alongside mathematics, art, and culture. Mistakes in midair could be fatal, enforcing a strong learning discipline from an early age. Schools could become floating platforms where students practice coordinated formations, predator evasion, and high-altitude survival skills. The education system itself would integrate physics of flight, meteorology, and biology, creating a society where intellectual and physical prowess in the air are inseparable. The arts of human imagination would flourish. Architecture would stretch the bounds of what is possible, incorporating aerodynamics into design. Sculpture could hover, painting could be layered across vertical canvases, and music could utilize the air as both instrument and medium.